Hi, I'm Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about Mercury going retrograde in Libra, September 26th through October 19th. Mercury will be going retrograde in Libra at 28 degrees on September 26th. And depending on where you are, this may actually start on September 27th, because where I am on the East Coast of the United States, the actual retrograde motion is very, very late, almost to midnight on the 26th. So it's really going to affect people on the 27th. Mercury will then station direct in October on the 19th at 10 degrees of Libra. And if you watched my video about how to handle Mercury retrograde, you'll know that that means that we have about 3 weeks, like usual, of Mercury retrograde, and we will have a shadow period that starts when Mercury is at 10 degrees of Libra, and the shadow at the end will end when Mercury returns once again to 28 degrees of Libra. What should you do during Mercury in retrograde? Well, I did mention all of this in my previous video about how to handle things in Mercury retrograde, but let's review. You should hold off signing important documents. You should review or rethink major decisions. You should return to incomplete projects and finish them. You should focus on review, repair, and returning to items, issues, and projects that have previously been started. You should go within. You should meditate on things you feel are not working in your life. You should reflect on why things are happening the way they are right now in your life. And most importantly, you should allow your expectations to shift. This is the real reason that the universe throws Mercury retrograde at us. It is to allow us to expand our thinking, to embrace new concepts, and to change the way we've dealt with things having to do with transportation, commerce, communication, and our everyday routines. This is so important when it comes to Mercury retrograde. Now, let's look at what it means to have Mercury in Libra. Libra is an air sign, so it is focusing on communication with others. It's also a very social sign, and Libra rules relationships. So we're going to be focusing on communication with others in our family, people that we work with, our close friends, and our actual partners, business partners, spouses, lovers, etc. It will also have an impact on diplomacy or negotiation, arbitration. And most importantly for most Libras, Mercury in Libra in retrograde will have to do with how to avoid confrontations. Above all, most Libras do try to avoid confrontations unless they think they can have a discussion that is fair and that they can bring about a good judgment from that conversation. Libras think of themselves as judges, and they do think of themselves as very, very fair. So they very often will point out to people what is not fair in their argument. And they're pretty good at keeping things on an even keel and not getting into a shouting match. Now, if they're having that conversation with somebody who is prone to shouting matches, that may not always work. But Mercury in Libra is going to focus on these types of activities. Focus on communication with others, diplomacy, and avoiding confrontation. When Mercury is retrograde in the air sign of Libra, you're going to find that your love life may go haywire. Things having to do with your loved ones just may not be communicated effectively, and it may cause problems. People or situations from the past may return or repeat. Communications in general will suffer because of misunderstandings. You may experience a lack of patience in yourself or others during a Mercury retrograde, and you may find that there are mistakes in written communications. And again, don't sign any important documents during any Mercury retrograde, but especially a Mercury retrograde in an air sign, because that's where you're going to be vulnerable to making mistakes. Let's look at other planetary influences that are going to be taking place during this 3-week Mercury retrograde period. First of all, September 26th itself is going to be an amazing day. We have the sun trine the moon. We have the sun and the moon trining Saturn. We have the sun conjuncting Mars. We have the moon trining Mars. And we have Mercury trining Jupiter. All of this trine energy has just enough punch from that conjunction of Sun and Mars to give it real oomph and to allow all of these good, harmonious, flowing energies in the air signs to really get communications going. So I know it's a really great day, but unfortunately, it's going to spark a lot of talking and communication and writing that should not be taking place during a Mercury retrograde. However, if these communications, talking and writing, have to do with things that have been ongoing for a long time, or maybe it's a return to a particular topic that was dropped and never finished, then I feel that the Mercury retrograde period will serve these communications well. You have Saturn there so that things are grounded. The attitudes and perspectives are mature and conservative and cautious. But you've also got Jupiter there that is bringing the conversation up to a higher minded level. It's allowing people to have truly inspired conversations that come from a very good, beneficial place. You've got the moon, which is trining Saturn and the Sun-Mars conjunction. The moon is giving a voice to the more feminine side of the equation, but it's also working competently and complementary with the male energy of Sun-Mars in conjunction. The Jupiter and Saturn are just giving blessings to everything going on communication-wise on this particular day, until, of course, Mercury goes retrograde. But this will also give a time frame for those of us who are looking at, say, national issues. It could be that we come to a big negotiation that culminates on September 26th. And then about a month later, 3 to 4 weeks later, we see the actual result of all of this coordination and meeting and conversation. On the day that Mercury actually goes direct, I've placed this on September 27th because that's the day that most people are going to experience this in the United States. The sun is still trining Saturn. The sun is still conjunct Mars. The moon is trining Mercury. The moon is trining Jupiter now. Mercury is still trining Jupiter. Mars is still trining Saturn. Now, though, Venus is trining Neptune. The moon is squaring Neptune. Mercury is squaring Pluto. Venus is squaring Jupiter. And Venus is in opposition to Uranus. Now, this may be a lot for all of you to take in, and I know it's more like looking at a chart as a professional astrologer would look at a chart, but it's important for you to understand that there are so many planetary influences that go into any kind of a chart reading. I mean, just looking at the fact that Venus is trining Neptune, but the moon is squaring Neptune. Do they cancel each other out? Well, no, not really. Venus trine Neptune boosts everything up to sort of a fantasy, very feminine, very romantic, maybe very spiritual level. And the moon square Neptune is obfuscation. It's fogginess, it's dissolution, it's dissolving those things. So you may have factions of people who are representing both of those aspects, where some people are very high-minded, very, very idealistic, and working from a very pure heart or spiritual place. And then you may have others who are working from a more deceptive place where they want to control things. They want things to go their way at all costs, and they're not willing to bend. But Neptune's in Pisces and the moon will be in Gemini. Those are mutable signs. So it'll be interesting to see how that aspect plays out. On the day that Mercury goes retrograde, we still have an awful lot of really, really positive aspects. So I think in general that on the day that Mercury goes retrograde, which usually sets the tone for the whole retrograde period, that actually things will go pretty well. There will still be people who are trying to keep secrets, which is the moon square Neptune. There will still be unexpected developments, which is Venus opposition Uranus. Uranus doesn't really involve anything else. And of course, it's still squaring Saturn. So you're still going to have people who are in positions of authority that are surprised by information that comes to light. So with all of this focus on communication in the air signs when Mercury goes retrograde, you can be sure that there will be lots of conflicting information in the news and probably in your life as well. There will be mistakes, there will be miscommunications, there will be lots of conversations. And all of this may contribute to people really getting down in the dirt and trying to figure out what is the truth. So this could really spur people on to a real search for the truth during this period. Now, don't forget that at the end of 2020, we had the Great Conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius. And Aquarius likes to think of itself as the great communicator. Aquarius is a visionary sign. It's a sign that looks to the future for humanity, but it also looks for justice, equality, and raising the quality of life for the masses. It always looks at humanity as a group and does not focus so much on individuals. Although the sign Aquarius, for the person who is the Aquarius, is all about the individual. So it's a dichotomy there that Aquarius really thinks about themselves a lot. They are a fixed air sign after all, but their job in the universe is to take care of the large masses of other people. So it's kind of interesting. They say that, you know, Aquarians have thousands of friends, but no best friend, because the people close to them are very private, and Aquarius will keep that very, very close to their chest. And yet they may know thousands of people. Thousands of people may consider them friends to the Aquarius, but the Aquarius looks out across the masses and thinks, oh, I'm so lonely. I wish I had a best friend. Now back to the Great Conjunction. So the Great Conjunction set up the 200-year cycle between Saturn and Uranus, where it would dance back and forth every 20 years in the air signs. And this is putting a huge, huge emphasis on communication. If you watched my Saturn-Uranus video, then you'll know that the next conjunction between Saturn and Uranus is also going to be in an air sign. It's going to be in Gemini, not until 2032. This emphasis for the time that we're living in on communication on air signs is quite important, and it cannot be dismissed. So even when we have Mercury retrograde in an air sign, that is important as well. The focus on the air signs means that during this Mercury retrograde, things will be moving pretty quickly, whereas usually with a Mercury retrograde, things really slow down. Now, it may not seem to be hurtling through the universe like the previous Mercury retrogrades that we had this year in Gemini and Aquarius, because Libra is a more gentle sign. So Libra likes to wrap everything in, cozy wool so that it buffers it. So we will have conversations that are well-meaning, but maybe taken the wrong way, rather than just putting the ideas in just like, these are my ideas, take them or leave them. That's not the way Libra is going to present anything. It's going to be couched in very diplomatic terms. Also, all of this emphasis on the air signs means that we really do have to shift our thinking. We really have to look at the way we're taking in information from external sources and shift the way we process that information and the way we communicate about that information. So air signs have a great impact and emphasis at this time. And for the water signs, with an air sign Mercury going retrograde, you will need to adapt to this quick moving energy, and that may make you feel uncomfortable. Now, some of you water signs are going to be fine with the quicker movement. I think Scorpios will probably be fine. I think Cancer is going to have the most trouble. Pisces, you're a toss-up. You are a mutable sign. And so when you start to feel things shifting and moving quicker, you may be like a little fish. You may just, be fine going along with it. Or you may sense that there's things here that are uncomfortable for you and you may hold back. So for Pisces, it's a toss-up. Scorpio, I think you'll be right there. I think you'll be okay with it. And Cancer, I know you're going to need a little adjustment time. So you also need to focus, all of you, all the water signs, on new ways to process your emotions at this time. Now, some of that is because of the faster moving energy, yes, but it's also because Libra communication is what's going to go haywire. And for a lot of you, I think you've probably come to depend on the smooth energy of Libra to develop relationships and to be comfortable in relationships. And so now you're going to need to go back to your water sign, emotional, intuitive base and reassess things all over again. So that might be a little tough for some of you. You all need to realize that the outside world is changing and you need to change with it. And that right there, for all of you water signs, is just going to make you feel uncomfortable. But all of you can do it because all of you are water. You're intuitive. You pick up things from other humans because the human body is made up of so much water. So you can do this. You're just not going to want to do it right away. So you have to get yourself comfortable with that idea. And in that whole decision-making process, you need to be more active. You need to take control for yourself. You need to not be so reactionary. You need to analyze a bit yourself what's going on in your world and what's changing in your outer world, and how do you make sense of that? So water signs, I know every Mercury retrograde this year has been tough for you. This one's going to be no different. But look back on the previous Mercury retrogrades in Aquarius and Gemini. The energy is not going to be totally the same, but there are going to be some similar things that are happening there with you needing to make adjustments to the way the world has moved on. So take a look at those periods and see if you can get some hints about how to handle this in a more comfortable way. All right, now the first water sign up is Cancer. Cancer, Mercury retrograde in Libra is happening in your 4th house. This means that it's concerning your actual domicile, where you live, and people that you live with. This may mean that if we're talking about a spouse and children, this may mean that everybody just completely goes against the grain of what they're supposed to be doing in the house. This disrupts your domestic situation. And Cancer, I know for you, this is a real sore spot. Your home is your Shangri-La, your sanctuary. It's where, you probably call the shots, but you want people to follow whatever rules you've set up. And there's going to be so many miscommunications, you're not going to be able to get people to follow the rules. It could also be that the activity of the family is just all messed up. Schedules are changed. Nobody can make it to soccer practice. Your husband's meetings run 4 hours longer than they should. You can't get dinner coordinated, or your job may cause you not to be able to be at home the way that you would like to be. So home life is really going to be disrupted because of miscommunications. And then we pull in the added bonus of Saturn and Mars. And so that Mars energy in your fourth house is going to make everybody a little bit impatient. Who am I kidding? It's going to make them impatient. They're going to be a little annoying and be annoyed with you. They're not going to be able to be diplomatic about things. So you're going to have to be ultra diplomatic, Cancer. And that Saturn coming forward from the eighth house is going to especially put a focus on you and your spouse and your resources. So it could be that you need to spend money on repairs of things, that something breaks or something gets broken during Mercury retrograde with Mars there in the fourth house. And the Saturn guarantees that it's going to be something that really needs to be fixed. It's not something you can put off. So unfortunately, Cancer, along with the mental and intellectual stress of this Mercury retrograde going on, you're also going to get a little stress from that Mars-Saturn trine. Even though it is a trine, it's two malefics, and it's hitting things that are pretty near and dear to you, resources connected with your spouse or partner, and also your home. And Mars is, it's a bull in a china shop. So when it comes to your house, I think that's where things are going to hit with Mars hanging out there. But look back on the previous Mercury retrogrades and at least get that communication part of it smoothed over for yourself and have a game plan. And then you can deal with the Mars trine Saturn. It is a trine. It isn't like an opposition or a square. So it's not like, your house is going to blow up or something. It just means that probably things are not going to be smooth at home, and there's going to be some kind of physical activity that may cause something to be broken. And if it is broken, it definitely has to be fixed right away. All right. So now let's move on to Scorpio. Scorpio. Now, this Mercury retrograde happens in one of your favorite houses, the 12th house. And Scorpio, I know that you all have a particular affinity to the sign Libra. Scorpios and Libras, very often you find them hanging out in the corner at a party, just gossiping and giggling about people. So I know that you probably have a few Libran friends. They're going to be not suffering with the Mercury retrograde, but they're going to be a key, a way in, a way to understand how to handle this energy. Just look at the way they're handling it and see if you can mimic that. Now, Scorpio, you love your secrets and you've got a lot of secrets. So during this Mercury retrograde, be careful that secrets are not revealed. Be careful that you don't all of a sudden just become a blabbermouth out of the blue, because this energy has you feeling very weird. Remember, I talked about for all the water signs that there's an uncomfortability about this energy for you. Least of all three water signs, but there's still going to be some discomfort. So you want to be careful about your speech and make sure that you're not spilling the beans on somebody, because it won't, believe me, it won't just be you give up a secret. It will be you give up some sensitive information about somebody that you care about, maybe a Libra, and then you're going to feel bad about it. And if you don't feel bad, Scorpio, then why don't you? What are you, a sociopath? Come on, you got to feel bad about these things, Scorpio. All right. Now let's bring in the added bonus of Saturn and Mars. Now, Mars is going to be in that 12th house too. And that's why I'm saying that this is probably somebody that you care about, that you give up this secret on. And also that it's going to be kind of an uncontrollable urge. It's going to be something that just kind of like comes forward. So be circumspect, Scorpio. This period of 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde is not the time to decide, I think I'll get drunk on tequila 4 nights in a row. That's not a good thing, because you want to keep a lid on it. And usually you're great at that. And usually a Mercury retrograde is probably not going to cause you to let go of secrets, but it's falling in your house of secrets and it's retrograde. So things are going to be wacky. Now, Saturn is going to be happening in your 4th house. So you're going to maybe feel like you're on lockdown. You're going to feel a little bit like you have ultra burden or responsibility about your home, or something is being really restrictive about your home. Or maybe you live in a home that's just really, really, really old and things are starting to break, and you're spilling the beans on how your Aunt Gladys never made any repairs, and that's the secret that you're giving up. If that's the case, then, you know, poor Aunt Gladys, maybe she just couldn't afford it. But you are going to have some emphasis on the fourth house with that Saturn, but it's not going to be the communication type of emphasis. It's going to be an emphasis on something having to do with lessons to learn, with structure, with restriction, with delays, and possibly with age or time. And the Mars in the 12th house is just going to be that bull in the china shop, wreaking some kind of a havoc, because Saturn and Mars are malefics. They're not happy planets. And even though they're in a trine, a happy aspect, they could cause a little bit of trouble. Now, hopefully, they're not. Hopefully they're doing great with the energy and they're talking to each other really nicely. But I'm trying to imagine how this would just be really a beautiful use of the energy. And I'm kind of coming up short. If I think of something, I'll put it down in the comments. Okay, now let's move on to Pisces. Now, Pisces, Mercury retrograde is happening in your 8th house. So I want you to be careful about shared resources. Now, this could pertain to things having to do with somebody who in your family who's passed on, a legacy, an inheritance. There could be problems with the will, with the distribution of assets. There could be some kind of a hang up or delay or a miscommunication concerning a larger investment like 401k or mutual funds, or a big loan payment, or your mortgage or insurance payouts, things like that. There could be some real hangups with that right now. And then let's bring in the added bonus of Saturn and Mars. And Mars in that 8th house could make you a little feisty about this topic. And I'm saying that you're going to be expressing things about it because Mercury is there. So be careful about what you're expressing about these 8th house topics. And again, the 8th house topics are sex, death, birth, taxes, transformation, large blocks of money in your life and other people's money, and shared resources. So when you're looking at shared resources, all those big ticket items, those are shared resources. And Mars is a malefic, and Mars is the attack or breakage or even weaponizing of these things. So you want to be careful about that, Pisces. You want to make sure that if there are any changes being made, say to a will or a trust that you're involved with, that you wait till Mercury is direct before you sign anything or make any of those changes. It's fine to go through and negotiate it, talk about it, analyze it, review it, send drafts back and forth. That's fine. Just don't sign the final copy until Mercury is well out of the retrograde period. Okay. Now, Saturn being in your 12th house is going to give you, you know, really don't sign stuff. Don't sign stuff, Pisces, because Saturn is in your 12th house of self-sabotage and self-undoing. So you may be having bad dreams. You may be having dreams about people who have passed away. You may be having dreams about people who are older than you. You may be dreaming about yourself in old age. And this may be driving you to make changes to these papers. And that's why you're really, really driven to actually sign the darn papers. So be careful, because you're not really operating on, you know, with a full head of steam. You're operating with misinformation because Mercury is retrograde. So trust me, Mercury's retrograde in that 8th house. That means that the things that you're communicating about having to do with your shared resources are going to be confused. They're going to be maybe mistakes in the paperwork, and you won't be able to really clear that up until after Mercury is direct. And then when it is, I want everybody to do like 3 spell checks and go through it 3 times with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that all the typos and mistakes are corrected. Okay, so trust me on this, Pisces. You know, Neptune is in Pisces. It's been in your 1st house for forever. So you know very well that things can be mistaken, things can be confused. Let's not make it any worse than it already is. Okay, that wraps it up for Mercury in Libra. Don't forget to see my video all about how to handle Mercury retrograde. It will be very instructive for all 12 signs. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.